So we talked a little about this before, but our body is made up of cells. And there's different types of cells in the environment, and cells are the lowest level at which we can call life. So a cell is alive. I could pull some cells off of your body and they're alive. They know how to function. If I put them in the right environment, they'll actually grow, like skin cells. If I put them in a petri dish with the right environment, they'll actually make more more skin cells. Brain cells are the same way, and heart cells too. Heart cells are really cool because you could take a little bit of a heart cell and they'll start growing and growing and growing and make a little piece of that tissue, which is really cool. And if you get the right area of the heart, which you'll learn about in anatomy, what will happen is it'll even mock beat. It'll have a little pump, 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 and that's how you'll know that your petri dish is ready, because you'll see the vibration of the liquid on the top. It's really cool. But if we look at cells, we really break them down into two components. Even life, we break them down into two things. We have a prokaryote and a eukaryote. And if you recall from the English language, pro really means before. And karyon, which is not a word that you probably use, is called nucleus. So before the nucleus, and eukaryote means true, and karyote means nucleus. So they've got a real nucleus, prokaryotes don't. If you've never seen this type of structure before, you see the two circles where the outer circle shows how they're different, and where they overlap is how they're the same. So a prokaryote cell is going to be something like bacteria. They are alive, they're small, they're really simple, they can't really make multiple cells and sort of grow into tissues like our cells can do, and they don't really have a nucleus. A eukaryote is much bigger. So actually, prokaryote cells can live on a eukaryotic cell, and they do. Your body, you are a eukaryote, you're going to find out in a second. And your body is basically 10% you and 90% eukaryotic, which means you're carrying 90% bacteria and 10% you. And that's very common. If all the bacteria left your body, you would die. So we need them. Eukaryotes are very complex, and they have a true nucleus. And a nucleus, if you recall back from biology class in high school or middle school, a nucleus is where you store genetic information. So the DNA is the most important thing in the cell, and if it gets attacked or degraded or just worn out in any way, the cell sort of dies. So a eukaryote makes this thing like a safe that keeps the DNA alive, the DNA safe, whereas the prokaryote doesn't have that, so it's a lot more vulnerable. So that's why you can use like Purell to clean your hands, and it'll just basically remove the cells from dying because the DNA is sort of not protected well, and it just sort of comes apart. See that area of the circle that's connected? That means these are the things that both of them have. Both prokaryotes and eukaryotes have DNA. Both prokaryotes and eukaryotes have ribosomes. If you don't know what a ribosome is yet, don't worry. We're actually going to go over it in the next couple of weeks. A ribosome is where we can make proteins. It's kind of like where the cell can tell the cell what to make, and it does it. The cell membrane is the outer part of the cell, and it basically allows some things to come in and some things to come out. So it's kind of like a shield, and we'll talk more about that later as well. What do all organisms have in common? Well, any organism that's alive are going to have these few things in common. They're going to have order, which means that they have a certain system and how they work. They do this thing called homeostasis. This is a very important word. If you take Bio 202, basically the whole semester is talking about homeostasis. And it means regulation, how your body controls and keeps you in a certain level. So for instance, temperature. Your body, when you get too hot, you sweat, and that's designed to cool you down. When you get too cold, your body basically takes fat and starts to burn it, and that process is going to start to make you shiver, and that movement, that shivering, is basically designed to warm you back up. We do that with a lot of things. So think about water. You drink way too much water, you're going to urinate. You drink way too little water, you're not going to urinate. Your body's not going to really be able to clean out its blood or anything like that, so that becomes a problem. So your body does this thing called homeo. Homeo means same, and stasis means level for so many things. I could go on, but the whole 202, if you take anatomy number 2, is basically designed to just even touch homeostasis. We couldn't do it in maybe 2 or 3 years, but your body does a lot of cool things, and we'll talk about it. Growth and development. Things that are alive grow and develop. If you think about you when you were born, you're really tiny, and as you grew, your arms grew, your legs grew, your body changed in certain ways, and that's good because, I mean, your poor mother, she's really tiny, and look how big you are now. If you came out the size you are now, it would be a very painful pregnancy. So by having you start out small and grow and develop, that's part of life. Energy processes, that's you bringing stuff like food in and turning that food into energy. We do it all the time. Responses to the environment. Again, we could talk about temperature. We could talk about how, even just when something rubs up against you, you have these neurons that sort of know something's close by because your hair starts to move, and that sends a message to your brain that you're coming close to something. Reproduction. That's the process of making another organism. So it could be sexual reproduction, or it could be asexual reproduction. The majority of the planet does asexual reproduction, where one cell becomes 2. With bacteria, that's how they do it, algae and things like that. And then evolutionary adaptation. I know some people don't really think about evolution and how it works, but evolutionary adaptation happens because if you think about it, if you've ever gone into a house that was built in, let's say, the 1800s or even early 1900s, you'll notice that the ceilings are really small, the doorways and the hallways are really small, and it's just because people were smaller back then. So that was the average, but people have recently been getting taller and taller and taller, and so that's why you see ceilings going up, up, up. We're noticing that the Earth is getting hotter now, so we're seeing that our body has adapted and changed a little bit. We're going to see that continue on and on probably for the next couple of years or decades, to deal with the heat and how to deal with keeping water inside of us and things like that. And then in our next video, we'll talk more about the 3 big domains.